Paddan tour. How are you guys doing? Are you doing good?
Yes.
Are you doing good? And you can do better. Are you doing good? Yes, wonderful. So now we'll head out on a Paddan tour through the canals, out in the big river, and then back again. This is a typical way to sightsee Gothenburg on a Paddan boat. A Paddan boat in Swedish means a frog boat, a toad boat, and this is a toad boat, and today we'll see Gothenburg from a toad perspective. You're students, right? International students from the University of Gothenburg and Chalmers. That's correct? Yeah. So I'm just wondering what you guys are studying, of course. So what we'll do is on 3, everyone will scream out what they're studying, all right? That's how I'll get to know you better. So on 1, 2, 3. Wonderful, sounds great. So now we'll head off. My name is Bjarne, I'll be the tour guide today. In the back we also have our fantastic captain Gösta driving. Remember that me and Gösta are here for your safety. If you have any concerns, just let us know. Finally, emergency exits. Well then, are you ready? Let's try one.
I didn't listen to you, sorry. What did she say?
So let's begin this tour by traveling about 400 years back of Gothenburg. Back time, this was Sweden's gate to the west, one might say. The land along the Göta River was the only part of Sweden with access to the west coast. Just a few kilometers to the north we had Norway, and to the south we had Denmark. And back then we were not very good friends with our neighbors, the Danes and Norwegians. And so for us it was very important to build a city here at the inlet of the Göta River. And it took 2 attempts to build this city, which we called Gothenburg. The first attempt was in 1607 when Karl IX founded the first Gothenburg on the other side of the river, on the island Hisingen and what is now Färjenäs. But after only 4 years the Danes came and burnt the entire city down. And so in 1621 we made a second attempt. This time Gustav II Adolf founded the current Gothenburg, the second Gothenburg, right here. And this time he took the help of Dutch engineers and tradespeople, and he did. Ooh, how romantic. Harbor canals, and along the entire city we built a 7-meter high city wall, a star-shaped city wall all around the city, the foundation of which you can still see to your left. Around the big wall we also built a big moat, on which you're traveling on now, and a big dirt bank, and then one more moat, because you can't have enough moats. And this plan worked. For the next 200 years Gothenburg would remain Swedish, and no Danes or Norwegians would successfully invade the city. But then something happened. In the early 1800s, we realized that these Danes and Norwegians were quite friendly after all. And so we became friends with them, and we could tear down the fences and take down the city wall. After this, the city grew immensely outside the boundaries of the old city wall. And where the wall used to be, we built lots of new streets and houses. And one of those streets was extra big and extra new, and therefore it got the name the Big New Street. And that's the street up to our left. And the Big New Street was a street for the very rich here in Gothenburg, and in each one of these houses here to your left only 1 or 2 families would live together with their servants. And when they built this Big New Street they were in a hurry, and so they built it from both the right and the left at the same time. They were very, very excited, so they started from both ends at the same time. And when they came to the middle, they had a problem. They had 2 plots of land, but only 1 street number left, number 17. So what did they do? Well, they called one house the 17 and the other one the 17 and a half. That's the number above the red door now to your left. And as far as I know, Sweden today. And up ahead here to your left you can also see number 7 built was the only public building on the Big New Street. But weirdly enough it does not have a street number, who knows? Hello, hello, hej hej! Tack så jättemycket! Hello, hello! You want us to wave? Come on, everyone! Alright, wonderful! And we'll find many happy Gothenburgers today. This is today one of Europe's most well-preserved 19th century parks. And when they built this park, they took inspiration from both English and German parks. Here you can, for example, find a rose garden with over 1,000 kinds of roses, as well as a palm tree house, where it's very warm, nice and dry inside all year round. The best thing about this park is that it's actually free to visit. It doesn't cost anything at all. And the palm tree house is the same. So if you have some... And he is a very cute guy indeed. Up ahead, the lock bridge. The moat we're traveling on suddenly stops. In the past, the moat continued straight ahead, but in the 1850s we filled in the northern half of the moat to build a central station on top. And so now we'll need to make a turn, right or left. Gösta, have you decided? Right or left? Which means Gösta will get very close to these pillars right here. So if you want to keep your arms and fingers after this tour, then please keep them inside the boat. Thank you. If we would have turned to the right, we would have traveled through a water lock. This is Gothenburg's only remaining water lock, built back in 1873. It still works like a charm. The water lock doors are opened by hand. It separates us from the Poorhouse River, a man-made canal built back in the 1650s to get fresh water into the city. If you left out the big river. We'll continue. So if you now look up to your right, you'll see one of Gothenburg's trams, and Gothenburg is a real tram city. We've had the trams here in Gothenburg since 1879, and today they make up the biggest tram network in the Nordic countries. For the first 20 years, the trams were pulled by horses, and it took 4 horses to pull 1 tram. But now they're driven by electricity. The trams, of course, not the horses. And Gothenburg is actually one of few cities in Sweden that's still on a swamp, one might say, as I mentioned before. And so it's very, very expensive to dig tunnels through the city. Now up to our right we have a place called Nordstan, the North City. You've probably been here already. It's a big shopping center where you can find everything you might want to need. It's a very big shopping center indeed. It's the same size as 55 soccer pitches. History, Gothenburg history, this is the place to go. But don't go there today. It's closed on Mondays. Go there tomorrow instead. That's better. Back in the 1700s, this was the headquarters for the East Indian Company, one of the first big international trade companies here in Gothenburg and in Sweden. They did lots of trade with China and the rest of Southeast Asia, and there they traded goods such as tea, silk, porcelain and knowledge. By yourself. Now to our left we have Lilla Torget. In English, it's the small square. There you'll see a man resting on a cane. That's Jonas Alströmer, a businessman from the 1700s who founded Text skyscraper and the tallest building in the Nordic countries with its 246 meters and 73 floors. Right now they're putting the finishing touches on it. The apartments on the lower half are already moved in. Now it's a sky bar on the 69th floor. The name of the tower is the Karla Tower, but it also has... But now, from the tallest thing in the city to the lowest bridge right here is the lowest bridge on the entire tour, and it has a special name. As we go under it, look up to your left. There's something hanging from the ceiling of the bridge, which reveals the bridge's name. Alright, here we go. And look up to your left. Do you see it? Up to your left? Do you know where it is? Maybe not, maybe. It's a cheese slicer. And so the bridge is called the cheese slicer because if you don't mind your head, then you are the cheese and that is the slicer. And if you look behind you, you'll see a sign with number 3 on it. And that's how many guides have lost their heads under this bridge. I'm just joking, of course. The bridge is named after the cheese slicer, which we Swedes love very much. We use it every morning to cut our cheese. On average, each Swede owns about 3 cheese slicers, give or take. We are very, very proud of our cheese slicers, even though it's a Norwegian invention, but we don't talk about that. Now, welcome out to the beautiful Göta River, which connects the Sea of Kattegat to the left with the Lake Vänern up to your right. If you continue in this direction all the way through Lake Vänern, through the Göta Canal, you'll eventually arrive in our capital, Stockholm. You can do this journey with your own boat. You can also use an official canal boat, which you now see all 3 of them here to your right, the Diana, the Juno and the Wilhelmshaven. And these boats take you from Gothenburg to Stockholm in 4 or 6 days, depending on the way you take. These belong to the Museum Maritime, a floating museum with everything from an old harbor ferry to a submarine called Nordkaparen and a big destroyer here to our right now, the big grey ship. The destroyer here to your right was built back in 1952 in Gothenburg, and back then it was the world's first destroyer with sea-to-sea robotic missiles. It's called the Småland as well. This ship used to have real functioning missiles here at the museum, but about 20 years ago the American President George Bush visited Gothenburg, and it's said that he got really scared of the missiles, and so they were forced to replace them with plastic dummies, which they still are today. It's quite a harmless ship now. It can't even get anywhere anymore. About 10 years ago it went to a shipyard and actually removed the propellers as well, so now it's stuck here at the museum. It can't go anywhere, but it has no missiles. If you now look down the river, you'll see a big bridge connecting the right hand side with the left hand side of the river. And this is the Hisings Bridge, and therefore it almost looks like a spaceship. And the thing is, you see over here to your left, you'll see a blue sign with a symbol and some text on it. So the text there, it says "Väntläge för broöppning." That's a waiting dock for the bridge opening. So if you have to wait for the bridge to open, you dock right here. And so what we'll do now, since the bridge is too low for us, we'll dock here and wait for the bridge to open. Does that sound good? Alright. What do you say, Gösta? I think Gösta is busy. No, we'll turn around before the bridge, so we don't have to wait for the bridge to open, don't worry. 1989, as an office building, it was built to put Gothenburg on the map of famous landmarks. London has the Big Ben, Rome has the Colosseum, and so in Gothenburg we built the lipstick. And it's been a huge success. It has won the award for Sweden's ugliest building, not once, not twice, but 7 times. And we are very proud. Now, just a harbor soon here to your right. It's Gothenburg's guest harbor. So here we, during summer, have boats, sailing boats from all around the world, or Scandinavia mostly, docking here overnight. It's called Lilla Bommen, this harbor, which translates into small beam. And why is it called the small beam? Well, in the past we used to have lots more harbor canals here in Gothenburg than they are today. Today we only have the Grand Harbor Canal and the Old Moat. But in the past we also used to have the East and West Harbor Canals, for example. And the East Harbor Canal went from here into the city center. At each end of the canal they would have beams they could raise and lower to let ships in and out. At the other end they had a big beam, at this end they had a small beam, and this place became known as the Small Beam Harbor. The most beautiful ship in this harbor, of course, is the Bark Viking. The big with 4 masts and lots of flags. The Bark Viking was built back in 1906 in Denmark as a school ship, and after that she sailed all around the globe. For example, once she sailed from Europe to Australia in a record-breaking 84 days. But in the 1950s, she found her home here in Gothenburg. Over the city, up ahead, we have lots of clouds. But out here on the river, we have sunshine. It's like exactly where the water meets this side of the river, the clouds meet clear sky. So you did the right choice to go on the tour today, or your your uni meet here, you did the right choice to choose this exact time. Great job. And now as we head down into the river here, down towards the sunshine, we can look up to our left here and we'll see the Gothenburg Opera House in all its glory. The Gothenburg Opera House was built back in 1994. It was back number 3, for example. And Älvsnabben translates into river quickie. Yes, that's the different kinds of flags in the front. This one has an orange flag in the front, as you can see, which means you have to pay for a ticket on it. It's the same as a tram ticket. But if it has a green flag in the front, it's actually free. So I know some of you are students at Chalmers, and they also have a campus at Lindholmen on the right-hand side of the river here. And so if you want to go there for free, you use the ferries with the green flags. If you want to get a fine, you use ferries with the orange flags instead. Now if you look to your right, you'll see a low glass building with the text SVT, Sveriges Radio, on top. But this used to be the headquarters of the camera company Hasselblad. Yes, welcome to Gothenburg. It's the capital of word puns. It's our so-called Gothenburg jokes. Here in Gothenburg we like to joke around. Our jokes are like dad jokes, but 10 times better, of course. And if you like them too, don't worry, there are more coming up later on the tour. And here you actually have a river quickie with a green flag in the front as well. So that one is free to ride. And that's actually also one of 2 electric river quickies we have here in Gothenburg as well. Now you're of course wondering, what is this thing here to your right? What are these big right? You also have Lubil. This is the Gothenburg Energy Company, the Rosenlund Works, where they burn natural gas and oil to get the heat and electricity for all the lovely Gothenburgers. And when they built this power plant here, they were surprised how big it was and how central it was. And so they decided to paint it a light blue color to fit well into the Gothenburg sunny skies. It works great, right? To the left of this big light blue building, you'll see 2 houses by the river, a pink building with some towers and a brown building with an orange roof. Right up ahead, we have a pink building with towers and a brown building with an orange roof. And there's something weird about these buildings. Do you see where it is? Exactly, you over there in the middle on the right hand side, you got it right. They are a stable base. And so one side of the pink building started to sink into the ground and the brown building started leaning. But luckily enough, the buildings are now real. And with that said, we are now leaving the Göta River Canals again. So let's say bye-bye to the Göta River. Let's give it a bye-bye wave. Bye-bye. Till tomorrow. In the inner harbor, we had Götaverken to our right, we had the Lindholmen shipyard down the river, and we had the Eriksberg mechanical workshops all the way down the river. And together they built hundreds of ships. But sadly, we had an oil crisis, followed by a shipyard crisis in the 70s, and the shipyards, they struggled, and they all had to shut down. The last one that closed was also the biggest one, Götaverken here to our right, and they closed as late as in 2015. At their peak, they were Sweden's 2nd biggest employer, with over 5,000 employees, but sadly, that is no more. But we have decided to keep the cranes here as a reminder of what used to be, and personally, I can't imagine a Gothenburg without these cranes. And at the old Götaverken shipyard, you can also see my favorite sight on the entire tour, and that's these steps. Do you see them? Yes, wonderful. These statues are supposed to symbolize climate change. Somehow. The river, you can also see a big ferry entering the port. Do you see it all the way down the river? Big ferry entering. No? Oh, I think we'll see it, yeah, now because it's hidden behind the pier, of course. We'll see it more closely later, so I will talk about it in just a few minutes. Before I do that, I will talk about the area up here to your right called Lindholmen. Here, the Lindholmen shipyard used to be another one of the 3 big shipyards here in Gothenburg. And these 3 seals, they each take up their own part of the river. And the seals are called Glen, Glen and Glen. But why are the seals called Glen, you might ask? That's because in Gothenburg, everyone is called Glen. Alla Silder and Glen Hussein. And so after that, we just said that everyone in Gothenburg is called Glen, just like our seals. And this brings me to the nickname of the big tower up here to your right. It's of course the Glenpire State Building. And if you look up to your right here, at the very top of the tower, on the side facing us, you'll see a small glass cube sticking out. Do you see it? The glass cube at the top? Wonderful. So that'll be the viewing platform with a glass floor. We'll never do such things. And that's also why I work at Exham in Denmark. Just behind the Atlantica, you can also see the area Eriksberg in the sunshine. And that's where you can also find a replica of one of the old ships belonging to the East Indian Company. So if you want to have something to do, just hop on a river quickie all the way down to Eriksberg, and there you can take a look at the beautiful old replica built in a 1700s style. So soon the big ferry behind us will turn around and they will dock right here at the ferry terminal belonging to Stena Line. So as I said, here you can take a ferry to Denmark. It takes 3.5 hours. But they also have a ferry terminal with ferries to Germany down the river, and that journey goes overnight and takes 14 hours instead. The ferry company Stena Line has its origins here in Gothenburg. A Gothenburger called Sten Allan Olsson founded the company back in 1939. Back then it was a metal trading business. But they started with ferries from Gothenburg, Denmark in the 60s, and since then it has become a success story. Today it's the biggest privately owned ferry company in the world, and they have ferries all around Europe. But their main office is still here to our right. And if you now look up ahead, you can really see the best of Gothenburg in the sunshine as well. You see everything that makes Gothenburg important. You see the ferries, you see the cranes, the lipstick, the inner city, all basking in the sunshine. So just enjoy. It does not get any better than this. So, some more words about the construction site here to your right. So what they're doing here to our right actually is a big development project. Well, they will redo the entire right-hand side of the river into a new neighborhood, just like they've done with Lindholmen here to your left, for example. So in 4 years' time, the ferry terminal will move from here as well to the outer part of the harbor. So in 4 years' time, the ferry terminal will move from here in the full height. So look up to your left after this bridge, up to your left. So there we have it, that's the Bastion Carolus Rex. So that's the only remaining part of the Gothenburg city wall in its full glory. So that's one of 12 bastions made up the corners of Gothenburg's star-shaped city wall. Rosenlund Canal, which got its name from all the wild rose bushes that used to be here in the past. In the 1800s, this was also the place for fish trade, and they had big outdoor fish markets here along the canals. But if you know anything about Gothenburg weather, you know that outdoor fish markets is a bad idea. It gets cold in the winters, the fish freezes to death. It gets warm in the summers, the fish smells really bad. So they came up with the wonderful idea to build an indoor fish market instead. And so they did. It was opened in 1874, designed by Victor von Gegenfeldt, and got the name Feskekôrka, or the Fish Church. And that's the building soon up to our left here. And after 4 years of renovation, the Fish Church finally reopened this spring. So now you can head inside, enjoy the beautiful architecture, eat a typical Gothenburg shrimp sandwich, and check out the freshest fish in town. And I've heard that from official sources. And here you can see how fresh it actually is. It gets fished up right here. I'm just joking. We are now headed into a construction site right up ahead. But before I do that, I'll say some more words about this church actually. So this is not a normal church, because in a normal church you believe in God. Here they believe in cod. And if you go inside, be on the lookout for fishy prices. And don't buy too many shrimp or else you're too shellfish. Alright, I promise I'll now stop with these fantastic puns, and now I'll talk about what we see up ahead. So behind the construction site you can see a glimpse of a church tower up to your right. And this church tower belongs to the Haga Church. And just beneath the Haga Church you'll find the neighborhood Haga. Haga is an old working class district with roots from the 1600s. It was Gothenburg's first suburb, one might say. In the beginning the buildings in Haga were very basic, because these buildings were located outside the city wall. In case the enemies will come, they would have to tear down these buildings quickly. The current buildings in Haga are from the 1880s. They are typical governor houses or landshövding houses. These houses have one floor out of stone and two floors out of wood, and they actually have a quite special story to them. You see, here in Gothenburg we used to have lots of city fires. And so they banned the construction of wooden buildings. However, when they were supposed to build working class houses like here in Haga, it was too expensive to build anything else than wooden buildings. And the compromise was to build the first floor out of stone and the rest of the building in wood. And that's how these landshövding houses came to be. So they're basically more fireproof wooden houses. Today, Haga is a wonderful place. You'll find cobbled streets, nice cafes, delicious restaurants, trendy stores, and maybe the perfect place to eat a Swedish fika. So do you guys know what a fika is? Yes, exactly. Is there anyone who does not know what a fika is? Please raise your hand. Oh, you're all fika experts. And so in Haga you'll find the perfect fika and the cinnamon bun of your dreams. The Haga bun. It is the same size as a dinner plate. It's supposed to be shared with friends or family, but if you want to eat one all by yourself, then knock yourself out. Europe. No. It's the longest park in Sweden. No. It's the longest park in Gothenburg. No. It's the longest park in the inner city, but still a great place to be. You'll find Gothenburgers enjoying the sun, having a good time. And you can also find a tree library here. So here you'll find one tree out of every wildly growing tree species in the Nordic countries. Well, it was built not many years ago, back in 2019 actually, so it's one of Gothenburg's newer bridges, but it looks much older than that. That's because it replaced an older Vasa bridge built back in 1906. And when they replaced the old Vasa bridge with a new Vasa bridge, they wanted the new one to look as similar as possible to the old one. And so they transferred most of the decorations from the old bridge to a new bridge. And that's why it's so pretty, even though it's quite new, the Vasa bridge. And the original Vasa bridge has a quite interesting story to it, which I will tell after the bridge. You see, when the first Vasa bridge was to be inaugurated back in 1906, it was Prince Gustav who was to open the bridge. He was a very busy man, he had lots of things in his schedule, and when he came here in his horse carriage, prepared to open the bridge, he was very tired, and he didn't care another opening. And even though there were hordes of people here waiting for him to cut the ribbon and open the bridge, he just didn't care, he just drove past them, and there was no opening ceremony. But luckily enough, the new Vasa bridge got a proper inauguration back in 2019. And now their friends will soon travel under the last bridge of this tour, the Bazaar Bridge right up ahead. It connects the King's Park to the right with the King's Square up to your left. On the King's Square you can for example find the big market hall. So if you want some great ideas for a place to eat a lunch for example, head into the market hall where you can find foods from all around the world and Sweden as well. And this bridge right here happens to be my favorite bridge on the entire tour. And if you want to know what makes this bridge so special, noteworthy and interesting, then just look up as we travel underneath the bridge. So look up and you might be able to spot it. So here it comes. Look up. Do you see it? Here in the back, do you see it? No. Are you sure? Well, there's actually nothing interesting. It's just fun to see everyone look up. Further up to your left here you have a big white building. That's a grand theater, the predecessor to the Gothenburg Opera House, one might say. And beneath it, at the very corner here, at the edge, you'll find a guy with a pyramid head. And that's the Greek fire titan Prometheus, who took the fires from the gods and gave it to the humans as technology and civilization. And as a punishment for that, he got banished to Gothenburg. And we go around him. People usually want to take a picture of him with their camera or their smartphone, but then they always regret their decision. And you'll now see why. Well, it's the only guy here in town with both a beer belly and a six-pack, as far as I know. And to the right, just beneath the Grand Theatre, we have the last sight on this tour, Gothenburg's very own Loch Ness monster, Håkan, here to our right. And that was the last statue on this tour. We are back where we started. I hope you enjoyed the tour with us today, that you had a good time, that you have enjoyed the sun, and that you'll have a wonderful evening here in sunny Gothenburg. You'll have a wonderful exchange here in Gothenburg as well. Me and Gösta, we are really happy if you remain seated until we've docked, and you can then stand up and leave the boat when I do this. If you like this tour, you can remember our names as Bjarne and Gösta. If you did not like this tour, then remember our names as Glenn and Glenn. Now, thank you so much och tack så mycket.